Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vinyl Power. That's right, the podcast where we talk about our love for vinyl records and share it with you. Join us each week as we bring you the latest in vinyl releases, what's in our vinyl collection, and wrap it up with epic vinyl. That's right here, each and every week, with your hosts, the Reverend Jeff Kelly and Kurt Harris. Once again, welcome to Vinyl Power. And thanks to Captain Keach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters from for the intro music. No, actually, that comes from Incomtech.com. Dude, there is so much royalty-free music out there that you can use for YouTube users. You just give them a little credit in your comments, and it is absolutely 100% free. And that dude, for years, a couple of decades now, has been making free music for the internet to use. You'll hear a lot of his music in like History Channel documentaries and stuff like that. You know, that's cool. Yeah, they don't pay for a lot of that kind of music. They get those from royalty-free types of places because, well, they're cheap bastards like we are. Speaking of being a cheap bastard, I'm the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and over there is Mr. Kurt, the friendly neighborhood music man, Harris.
You got it.
We do have hiding in the wings in just a little bit. That's right. WID34 is back with us. You can hear his strings plucking if you listen very closely. That's right. Hey, every week we start out the show with the releases, and I got to tell you, they've been pretty crappy of late. And this week is no freaking better.
Oh, no.
Brian Fallon is releasing Sleepwalkers February 9. And Franz Ferdinand is giving us Always Ascending also on the 9th. And I got to be honest with you. Yeah, other than Superchunk, I don't see much coming up in February. February sucks.
Wow.
But yeah, Brian Fallon and Sleepwalkers and Franz Ferdinand with Always.
I've heard of Franz Ferdinand, but I have no idea what it is.
Dude, I was listening to Taste of Honey from Herb Albert's Whipped Cream and Other Crazy Delights earlier today. Just playing right along, man. I love it. So I got to ask you, brother, what you been spinning on your platters this week?
Well, I decided to go back to the roots, and my roots are the early metal. And if you're going back to the roots of the early metal, well, there's no place better to go for me personally than Black Sabbath. And being that I've discussed the first two Sabbath records on here before, I decided to start at number 3, Master of Reality. And wow, I don't know what you can say about this record in terms of its impact on future bands. This one probably had more impact on future bands than even the first two. Iron Maiden listed as one of their all-time favorite influential albums. Metallica, Frank Zappa loved this record of all people.
It was finally okay to be loud.
Yeah.
I think this was the record that really finally made it okay to be loud and obnoxious, because this is what it was.
Oh, this record, this is the record, the first one where Tony Iommi actually down tunes his guitar, and that was a double-sided effect for Tony because, as many people know, he had lost the ends of a few of his fingers in an industrial accident right before they basically started the band. I do mean right before, like days before the band was actually going to start.
Before your big break, you lose the tips of your guitar fingers. Damn it, man.
It was the day he was actually losing his metal. He was quitting his metalworking job. It was that day. So you talk about, strange fate, but it changed the way he played guitar. He played like nobody else. And on this one, he down-tuned, and it had double effect. One of the effects was it made it easier for him to play because the strings were a little bit looser. And the other was, of course, the deeper, more sinister sounding, tone that he was able to get. So this album is just loaded. Sweet Leaf, After Forever, Children of the Grave, Orchid, Lord of this World, Solitude, Into the Void. Just a fantastic overall record. It's their third record. It was 1971. It actually reached number 8 on the U.S. charts, number 5 in the U.K. It was recorded at Island Studios. And, you just have to say that they knew what their reputation was from the first 2 records. Oh, they're Satanists. They're this, they're that. And if you read, and actually, right on the back, it has the lyrics. So anyone could pick this record up and read the lyrics without even buying it. And if you read the lyrics, you realize what the band was really about. And sure, they probably smoked a little too much and drank a little too much and did a little too much of this and that. But they were against the soul-stealing drugs and the evil of this world. And that's exactly what these lyrics speak about on this album is basically, yes, you're going to be a sinner. We're all going to be sinners. But you don't have to sell your soul. You don't have to give yourself up to the bad guy. And so it kind of refuted what a lot of people thought about on the first ones. And so that's where I started. And I moved on.
Well, naming the band after the Devil's Church Service is not exactly the greatest start to.
Well, they actually named the band after the film Black Sabbath. They were sitting around. They were trying to figure out a band name, and they wound up watching the Boris Karloff movie Black Sabbath, which has like 3,
which was about Satan's church service.
Well, it has it has 3 tales in it. It has 3 different stories. So it's one of those movies with multiple stories.
Things, yeah.
And they just thought, wow, that's a really cool name. So anyways, I went to the very next one, which is Volume 4, which definitely was a very different album than the first. Well, all the albums are different, but they went in a little bit of a different direction here. And it's the first album that was not produced by Roger Bain. He produced all of the first 3. And this is 1972. It went to number 13 in the US and number 8 in the UK. This one was actually recorded at the record plant in LA. So this is the first one that was not recorded inside the UK. And like I said, many people list the Masters of Reality and then this one, Volume 4, as really super influential albums going forward. John Bonham of Led Zeppelin said he thought the drum work on this album was spectacular, and it made it probably his favorite Black Sabbath record because he enjoyed the drum work so much. This is the Rhino. These are all the 180-gram Rhino remasters. And they do a great job. When they're gatefold, they give you the gatefold. They give you the right pictures. They're cool enough to, if there was a poster or something interesting that came with the album, they make sure to deliver that as well. So what the original gate sleeve would have been like, they give you that, but they still give you the record in a nice, actually poly-lined sleeve. And with these, with these Rhino remasters, you get these for brand new for under $20 a piece. Some of them are like $17 brand new. I mean, you literally can't beat that. And then for the third and final of this week, I'm skipping over one and jumping to 1975's Sabotage. And the reason, and again, same thing. You get a nice gatefold with a lot of pictures and information. You get a nice sleeve inside. And the reason I jumped to this one, besides the fact, I mean, it's a very good record. It has a little more of a progressive bent to it. Actually, not as much as Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, which was the album that was in front of this one. They went a little more back to their just heavy roots with Sabotage. But the thing about this record, it's actually an angry record, and there's a reason why. The entire time that they were recording this record, they had found out that they were being totally abused and taken, as so many bands, I'm sure, have throughout the years, right? Man. Totally being abused and taken by their management and the record company. And it was constant lawsuits and paperwork being delivered while they were recording. They were signing papers and answering phones. And it was just a mess. And so Sabotage was the band being sabotaged by management. And so there's a lot of anger on here. And I believe one of the few songs that Ozzy ever actually wrote the lyrics to is called The Writ. And it's the last song on the record. And it basically describes Ozzy's feelings with dealing with being ripped off.
Oh, look, Ozzy wrote the record. Hey, Ozzy, we're going to put it right here on the refrigerator. That way everybody gets to see it. All right. I mean, but
yeah, no, sure exactly.
He sure did make a pretty front girl.
And but I think you know, with songs like Hole in the Sky, the amazing Tony Iommi is just the god of riffs, and Symptom of the Universe, Thrill of It All, Super Czar, and even you know, for Sabbath, I've always thought kind of an interesting song because it seems so different amongst their catalog of music. But the song Am I Going Insane radio version, which is always what it's been called on the record, but it's a really good song, and it fits the band. It fits what they can do really well, and that's why I say Sabotage is still a very good record, even though it was made under the circumstances that it was made. And it's 1975. It did reach number 28 in the U.S., so not quite as high as its predecessors. Number 7 in the U.K., and like I said, driven by a hatred for management, which is not always a bad thing.
No, fired them all, took their money. That's what they did. We don't need no manager. We'll manage ourselves, damn it.
And so
be more like the bloody Beatles. You know how rich those boys are.
Be like the Beatles. And so yeah, that's where I was at during this week, and still at, because I'm still doing Sabbath today as we speak. So I have to ask you, Reverend Jeff, because I know you've been going through a little bit of health issues here and there and having to deal with some things, but I know you've pulled yourself up by your bootstraps and getting all your work done. And I have to ask you, what records have you turned to kind of soothe the savage beast this week?
That's exactly what it went to. And you know, it's funny that you went all Black Sabbath, because I was never really exposed to Black Sabbath early on, because it was too old for me. You know, I was a child of the mid-'70s that moved into the 80s. So I really had to go back and learn what Black Sabbath was, because what I was born into was Ozzy Osborn. You know, that's exactly what I was born into. And the first one that I dropped out this week, of course, was his debut after being fired in 1979 from Black Sabbath. The debut solo album by British heavy metal vocalist Ozzy Osbourne, released on 20 September 1980 in the UK and March 27, 1981 in the US. Blizzard of Oz is the first of 2 studio albums Ozzy Osbourne recorded with guitarist Randy Rhoads prior to Rhoads' death in 1987. In 2017, it was ranked 9th on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest metal albums of all time. Of course, this one has, I Don't Know, Crazy Train, Goodbye to Romance, Suicide Solution, Mr. Crowley. That's right. Those are all the big ones that hit the singles list off of this album. The 2002 reissue is out there. It's 180 gram, and that's exactly what this one is. And it is a very well done production on this particular album. The tracks Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley were released as singles in 1980, and that went on to peak at number 9 on Billboard's Top Tracks charts. In January 2009, the song achieved number 2 platinum certification status. 2 times platinum, people. That's a lot of records sold. So I started out with listening to some Blizzard of Oz. That's right. Gotta love the Ozzy Osbourne. Of course, the second studio audio album was Diary, not Diarrhea. Like I always want to call it, Diary of a Madman. Released 7th November 1981. So right on the heels of Blizzard of Oz in America, it comes right out November and reissued on CD in 1995. The last Osborne studio album to feature the guitarist Randy Rhoads and drummer Lee Kerslake. An altered version appeared in 2002 with original bass and drum parts removed and re-recorded in a 2001 deluxe 30th anniversary edition, and it was released with all original parts restored. To date, the album has sold over 3 million copies worldwide. Over the Mountain, Flying High Again are the two that went onto the solo charts. I believe this one went, it doesn't say. I know it was in the top 100. There's no way that it wasn't. Okay, moving right along. After is the Bark at the Moon. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Third studio album by heavy metalist Ozzy Osborn, released 15 November 1983. Now has Mickey Ratt and rough cut guitarist Jake E. Lee, who replaced guitarist Randy Rhoads, who had been killed a year earlier in the plane crash. The album peaked number 19 on the Billboard album chart, and within several weeks of release was certified gold for over 500,000 sales in the U.S. alone. To date, again, another 3 million copies have sold in the U.S. In the UK, it was the third of 4 Osborn albums to get the silver certification of 60,000 units sold by the British phonographic industry. Off of this one, Bark at the Moon and So Tired as well hit the singles charts. And if they've hit the single charts, then they were in the top 100. Yeah. That's exactly what that was. And finally, getting me right into the mood, right up to showtime, literally tonight, was The Ultimate Sin. That's right. It's the fourth studio album by, of course, Ozzy Osbourne, released 22 February 1986. Then again was remastered and reissued in 1995. Marks the final appearance of lead guitarist Jake E. Lee and the first and only Osborn album to feature bassist Phil Sousa, who co-wrote the album's hit single Shot in the Dark. Drummer Randy Castillo, who had previously played in Lita Ford's band, also makes his recording debut with the Osborn masterpiece. Shot in the Dark was the only one that got onto the singles list, and it was 2 million copies sold worldwide. So we're talking, what, 3, 6, 9, 11 million copies of records sold worldwide in a matter of like 5 years. Well, 5 albums, 4 albums spread out over, I guess, 35 years now. So that, my friends, is exactly what the old Reverend here was listening to while he was getting to feel better for the show. Now, I know what I'm going to ask. I usually at this point ask Kurt what he brought for an epic record, but I know that he brought the famous, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. WID34 over today. So, hey, say hello to everybody and give us a little bit of something you want Black Sabbath-y if you'd like today. Say hi and
hey.
There you go.
All right.
Did you happen to bring in any of your Black Sabbath vinyl with you today?
No, I sure didn't.
But you brought the guitar, and that's the important part. Tell us about the guitar.
This is Kurt's guitar, and it's a Stratocaster, and it's really nice guitar. It plays good and stays in tune good. We got it set up good with the tremolo. Stays in tune pretty good. And I want to play a couple riffs for you.
Give it to us, man. That's awesome, dude. Thanks, man. That's great. You know, Kurt and I had talked about when Sergeant Pepper had first came out, and we did the Jimi Hendrix show the last time. How Jimi Hendrix had done Sergeant Pepper opening night and the Beatles were in the band, were in the balcony. I found an interview with Paul McCartney, who later said that he was most impressed with Jimmy's whammy bar work because they hadn't quite figured out how those really did all the things he could do with them. Yeah, that was very, very cool. Hey, my epic album actually has something to do with you today, sir. And of course, you know, I was listening to the YNR 7 album again, and you know, I tried to look up the information on it, and to be truthful of it, I couldn't really find a whole lot online about it, so I figured I'd give you the opportunity to tell people, because the last time I featured it, I really didn't know what to say. So tell us, when did it come out? What's specifically on it? What made you make it?
Well, it's a collection of recordings about 2 years ago. A friend of mine produced it. I play all the guitar, or most of the guitar. The singer plays on a couple of the songs on rhythm. And yeah, it's a bunch of jam stuff we put together and we wanted to use at the time, but we couldn't. And then Tony, the guy who produced the record, he started putting it together, and it just fell in place like about 2 years after the recording. So it's about a 4-year-old recording, and yeah, we just kind of put it out, and
it's definitely wicked good, man. It really is. I mean,
but,
is it for sale out there, or how to? I mean, if somebody wants a copy of it, how do
they can just contact me through WID34.
Yeah, WID34 is on YouTube as well, so you can send them a message
them
there.
Out to places all around, some record stores and distributors.
For sure, man. I mean, it's got some cred. I really dig it. I dig it a lot. Why don't you give us a little bit of that on our way out tonight? Why don't you give us something that's close to off of the record and give people a little taste of it?
Sounds good.
That's that whammy bar.
Yeah.
Definitely want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, watching us live here. Rod Dupree, Ken, Lance, all hanging out, saying hi. Hi, guys. Glad you're out there. We'll be back next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. At Final Power Podcast on Facebook. You can find us there. We'll thank our guest WID34 for checking in with us today. Love it when he comes in and plays. And we'll see you guys next week.